first of all, and I've had a few dealings with him where he's been able to provide some fantastic advice. He sits in Scotland Broad and looks after, he's the managing director of the arm that looks after mortgage brokers. So he has a lot of dealings with, I guess, financial claims, fraud claims, AFCA complaints, all that sort of fun stuff that nobody else really wants to talk about. And I thought, like, when it comes to making things easy, one of the best ways to make things easier is to actually, I guess, preempt what could go wrong. So I've invited William just to have a chat with us today. William, are you around?
Yes, definitely am.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. Look, thank you so much again for coming on. Just in a nutshell, introduce who you are, what you're passionate about, what you do, and just let people know a little bit about, I guess, the type of things that you do in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I want to say thank you for the opportunity, and I can't imagine a better way to spend, I guess, a day just after a long weekend than with you all, and I guess getting the brain thinking with all these presenters and all these topics. So just a bit about myself. So 10 years in the insurance industry. This year, I spent 7.5 years working for a few insurers. First as a claims consultant. So I've kind of done most of the roles. I did a claims consultant role. I was an SME underwriter, which meant I was kind of pricing up the risks for small, medium enterprises. From there, I kind of start to get a bit of taste of the, the sales side of things and the coming up with a solution for my insurance brokers. And it was there where I transitioned into a BDM type role. And I really liked that whole relationship piece about, helping my brokers. They had an issue with, trying to get cover for a client. And I was always the one who was like, look, you know what, I'm going to go into bat for you. I'm going to go up against technical and we're going to get this approved. So that's where I kind of got the thrill, helping my clients, which at the time were brokers. But it was around 1.5 years into my BDM role that I kind of started to realize, hang on, I'm helping brokers, but I'm only offering one solution. What if I got closer to the client and then I was the one who could use the market, all the insurers in the market? So that's kind of how brought me over to Scotland Broad 3 years ago as an account manager. And then I was lucky enough at the start of this year that the position came up that for our mortgage broking division, where we have a facility which helps just over 5,000 brokers throughout Australia,
okay,
as well as a few aggregators as well, just to be, I guess, to head it up and to run it. And I think talking about before, you were saying about your clients and your community, I think that was the really exciting part for me. So I'd spent obviously 3 years where I've been across all types of risks. Like even to this day, I can still do any types of risk, fintechs, lenders, it can be an electrician, a plumber, but the chance to really specialize in an industry, and an industry where Scotland Broad themselves have had an involvement for over 15 years. So it's a pretty extensive history. We've got a lot of, I guess, support from a lot of the aggregators, and a lot of people have experienced our product as well. It was just, a great opportunity to, take hold of this community. And as you said, sometimes, with your clients, it can get a bit personal in terms of fighting for them. And that's what I've kind of found. I've enjoyed, the discussions with the insurers, but also I'll probably touch on a bit later about the AFCA complaints where, you see a complaint, you're like, that's not right. And it's, we're going to push this as far as we can push it to try to get you the right result.
Yeah, it's like, and look, unfortunately, in your role, we don't really hear from people like you until we need you, which is not good. And look, I've across my career, I've had a few interactions with AFCA, not myself personally, but helping clients or brokers that I've been working with, and it's usually one of those things where you don't really think about it until you have a problem. And then usually we call someone like you for help with some of this stuff, or the license holder as well. What in a changing world, and it is a changing world, and probably one of the things I would love for you to touch on is the increase in cybercrime. I know within the brokerage that I work in, I've seen 3 examples in just the last 12 months where it hasn't always been on the broker side, it's been the one time was a client solicitor that got done where
Yep.
They a client received an email saying this is a bank account details that you need to send the the deposit to, and unfortunately that wasn't the solicitor emailing them or etc. What are you seeing out there, and what should we be aware of, and what should we actually be trying to protect ourselves from?
Yep. No, look, definitely a lot more activity, and it's only very natural. Like, just to give you a bit of context, I think the first cyber insurance policy in Australia was probably, I'd say, maybe 12, 13 years ago. And that kind of market in itself has kind of evolved so much that if you look back 3 or 4 years, 5 years ago, cyber insurance, yeah, quite it was quite competitive, like quite competitively priced. But over the last few years, with COVID, with everyone, it's becoming more of a digital world. Hackers are becoming more sophisticated. Insurers have actually gotten a bit more scared now because they're saying, wow, this is a risk we can't quantify. Like, how are we going to quantify? You can do all these flood maps, you can do all these like natural disaster calculations, but how can you calculate how fast these hackers are going to build better tools? How can you account for all this human error where people are going to click on these links that they thought were genuine, and they're going to be compromised or get an invoice that they say, okay, yep, in a busy world, everyone's just trying to pump out as much tasks as they can, and they see an invoice and say, yep, oh look, I've looked at it, looks about right, I'm going to pay it, and we're going to get done with it. So there's a lot more exposure that we're definitely seeing right now, and that's kind of reflective as well in the insurance market. Like, you can see the cyber losses that a lot of the big insurers suffering from these big events that you see on the news are contributing to that. But also you can see it in the conditions. Like, there's so many insurers now that are putting on sub limits to ransomware attacks. So anywhere where ransomware meaning, someone gets a hold of your system and says, we're locking it down unless you pay us 50,000 or a Bitcoin or a couple of Bitcoins or a couple of $1 million. That's ransomware. So insurers are seeing that they're getting hit by it more, so they're putting limits, whereas before it was to the full policy limit. Also, some insurers are saying, look, if you don't have multi-factor authentication, we're not covering you. So it's a combination of a lot more exposure. We're seeing a lot more activities as well.
Yeah, look, I'm going to say this, and it's got nothing to do with Scott and Broad. I'm not trying to, obviously I'm plugging you a little bit because you're on here, but I think every broker business should be going back and looking at their PI insurance and seeing whether the cover still is relevant for, I guess, the environment that we're in right now. Because there is some changes, and not all insurance is equal. So the first person who flagged this with me was actually Zarko from MFAA. So he's one who said, well, Andrew, this is going to become a really big thing, and we need to look at it. And it works on two. It's good for two reasons. One, yes, it protects you and makes sure that you're safe. But it's also becoming something that our customers are becoming more concerned about, is whether we have adequate protection in place to protect them as well. So it's not just insurance, it's, what cyber protection do you have in place? And it's becoming a point that you can sell, or a point of difference that you can sell on, where you can actually say, my business is safe. We've got additional software in play to make sure that that you are protected as this becomes a bigger issue. It's an important part of developing that trust. What about AFCA? That's my favorite people. Look, they have since they've, I guess, restructured and became AFCA. When they first started out, they were horrific and very difficult to deal with. They have got a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper, so I'll give them that. But what are you seeing in regards to customer complaints? What's actually hitting AFCA at the moment? What should we be aware of or be thinking about as, I guess, business owners and brokers?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I guess for me, the position is a bit biased because obviously quite a few brokers and seeing quite a few notifications and claims coming through. So I think the sentiment is AFCA is still doing AFCA. AFCA is still pretty pro-consumer. I think they have, I know I was hearing probably a few years ago where they were accused of kind of coaching some consumers into putting in certain complaints or wording certain complaints in a certain way just so they can get pushed through as well. I think they've gotten a little bit of a scare over the last 1 or 2 years, so they have backed off. But look, definitely always seeing different types of complaints. And the one that's probably scaring me a bit more the most at the moment is probably rate concerns around rate lock. And I've got a few incidences that are currently ongoing with that as well. So that would have been, the customer, obviously now we're in an environment of raising interest rates, and a customer would have said, yep, you know what, can I lock in the fixed rate at X amount? And then for whatever reason, someone would have sent it to the wrong team. And then the bank BDM would have said, hey, you know what, don't worry, it's at the wrong team, but you know what, we can fix this. And then the BDM goes on holidays, and then 5 weeks later, the issue's still not resolved. And then, by then interest rates have already gone up, and then all the banks have got a hard stance on it. And they say, you know what, we're not budging. That's the new rate.
I can almost guarantee that any broker who runs volume, this will happen to at least once in this current market. But it's a real valid point, because and I've had this discussion with some of the brokers I've worked with. We've been in an environment for the last however many years where interest rates have been coming down, and customers don't feel a loss or don't get emotional about interest rates going down.
Yeah.
Because they're saving money, and even if their rates aren't going down by as much as they should be, and they're paying more than they should, it doesn't really activate them to engage with the broker. Yeah. But in a market where rates are going up, it's an emotional time for customers, and emotional customers tend to complain more, express their dissatisfaction more. And we are going to see a rise in customer complaints. We just have to be ready for it. And sometimes it's going to be things outside of your control that you've got no ability to actually, determine the outcome. But things are going to happen in this environment where a customer may not have cared as much previously. They will care now. And so they should be. Someone just made a comment in the chat, and I couldn't agree more. Customers, they expect us to have a crystal ball, and the number of conversations. I get a text message at 7:30 a.m. the other morning from someone asking me what interest rates they're going to do, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like, as in, maybe once upon a time I thought I had an idea, but there's so many external factors right now influencing the local economy. We have no idea either. But customers are looking for someone to blame if things go wrong. And we could be an easy target. So what advice could you give people to, I guess, help them prepare for complaints that might come, or be in a better position if something does go to AFCA, that they can handle things better?
Yeah, man, Andrew, I think you hit the nail on the head. We're in even today in society, we're in a society where, no one really wants to take responsibility. When something goes wrong, everyone wants to point the finger at someone else. And I guess, a lot of it, like I troll through hundreds of complaints. That's probably half of the complaints where it's, the broker did whatever they could in terms of, it was the customer who went and, signed the contract unconditionally, and then is like, all right, I need you to get me the finance on it in like 3 weeks. Or ones where it was like, they didn't disclose certain situations, or, it was an investment that all their serviceability levels were fine, and they went ahead with the investment anyway, and then they ended up, some circumstances changed and they lost the property as well. So I think it's just being prepared that, people are going to, when things go bad, people are not going to want to take responsibility. And it's kind of looking at how, I guess, two parts to that question. I was going to say, number one is probably you're not alone. So leverage your resources, leverage your compliance team at the aggregator. That's what they're there for, or whoever the licensee is, to help you respond to the matter. And I guess in turn, with doing that, they will probably notify us fairly early. And we always, look, I don't mind it. For us, we have sometimes aggregators or brokers who come to us like a month or 2 months after the complaint, and they're like, hey, this has already reached AFCA, it's already far gone, here, we need you to respond. I'm like, well, okay, we still can, but we have to see whether you've prejudiced anything in the last 2 months that kind of could have got us to a more favorable outcome, and that's the risk. But it's, yeah, leveraging your compliance team, because even with the policy, I guess, that we offer and most policies offer, there's usually like a 1 hour legal advice that you're able to use with the lawyers to kind of get some advice on like a potential claim from the policy. So yeah, get them involved. They'll get us involved. We can have a quick chat about, okay, this is what's happened. This is what my response is going to be. Do you think I should amend any words? I've done that for a few clients in recent times as well, just because the complaints process can be quite unclear for a lot of people who haven't gone through it before. So I guess number one is, yeah, just knowing that people are there that do this quite regularly and can give you a few pointers how to go through it. The other part is just, I think, really, like, obviously a lot of brokers are going to know about their own processes, and with compliance, making sure contemporaneous notes, making sure they're across all the most recent types of, I guess, deals and grants that are going on. But I guess another kind of proactive piece of advice that I'd seen is also knowing your client, like knowing your client in respect to who are the ones that you think that, they're quite demanding, like for what, they might be like a $200,000, $300,000 loan, and they're very demanding for that. They're a lot of hard work. So I guess when you're in that qualifying client stage, it's like, when something really goes wrong, what's this guy going to do? Is he going to cut me some slack, or is he going to like go after me for everything? Like, is this a real relationship, or is this just a very transactional relationship? And just to add to that as well, knowing your client's situation at the moment as well. Like, obviously now it's a bigger topic about financial abuse, and knowing when you can recognize those situations, but also when, I guess, two people go out to take out a loan together, what's the downside when they split up and then the house has to be separated, and then they're going to complain to say, I didn't know that, I signed that, or one of the partners is more involved in the loan application, and then when something goes wrong, they come back and they say, look, you know what, I didn't intend to do that. I've suffered a loss, and you forced me to do that as well. So I think we can't have a crystal ball, but it's just like trying to anticipate certain scenarios.
Yeah, it's, again, I know everyone's heard this before, but document. If you're having a conversation with a client and you just feel a little bit uncomfortable, document that conversation. A history of documentation, and I remember years ago now, when I was a lender for a bank. This is, I'm talking 20 years ago. It's a bit embarrassing. I remember I had a customer complaint where the customer claimed that they never made a particular application, going through a divorce, very similar to what you're saying. And the only thing that saved me was the fact that I could demonstrate, and I think demonstrate's a key word here, that on numerous occasions I've had the same conversation again and again and again because it was documented.
Yep.
So they said, well, it's likely that you had that conversation with these people as well, because you can demonstrate documented evidence that you do have that conversation. If I didn't have that demonstration in place, I could have been in a lot more trouble. So yeah, definitely. I know some people hate documenting things. Find a way. There's some great tech pieces now that you can use to help document conversations. I had a conversation with a broker recently, and this is when you're getting older, where they're a younger broker, and they said that they've done applications with clients right now who not only have they not physically met, but most of, like 90% of their conversation has been through Messenger. Haven't even spoken over the phone. Like, under 25s, buying property, don't want to talk on the phone, just want to send messages. They said, but the great thing is I can just screenshot all the messages and use it for my notes. I'm like, well, I guess that's an upside where, that's great documentation. So sometimes documentation isn't sitting there taking notes by hand. There's other options as well. So yeah, look, it is very important. It's very important to listen to your license holder at your aggregator. As much as I hate to say that, sometimes that relationship can be difficult, but make sure you make it less difficult, because unfortunately, when you get in trouble, and you highlighted this earlier, William, you do need these people in your corner. They are there to actually protect you and support you and train you and help you. They're not against you. They're meant to be on your team. They're on your side. So definitely leverage up that relationship.
And just one other point I was going to add to what you were saying, with the license holder as well. The way, and I'm guessing some brokers probably haven't gone through a complaints process with AFCA. AFCA names the licensee. So not that brokerage. Whenever a complaint comes through, AFCA will search for whoever the licensee is and name them first.
Right.
So it's the licensee who's going to be dragged into AFCA, and then it's for the licensee to say, oh, actually, this is one of my credit representatives. So yeah, you always want to be as forthcoming and cooperative with your licensee, because ultimately there could be a financial impact to them as well. And then obviously you don't want that affecting your working relationship.
And don't hide. And look, early confession works. Don't hide anything. Contact them early if you think something's going wrong. So then they can actually work with you. I've seen it where people try to hide things. Your licensee knows a lot more than what you think they know about the situation. There's no point in trying to hide things from them. They have access to a lot of information. Just be forthcoming, forthright, give all the information, and yeah, be as transparent as you can.
Yep.
And I know people like myself, like when I've been in that situation where I've been looking after a broker, I will go into bat for you, and I will go in as hard as I can, and I will, I'll definitely make sure you're protected. But look, thanks, man. I really appreciate your time and having this conversation. I did look. There's a few other people who joined the room now, and I did see Angus had logged in from quickly. I'm aware of the time, and if people need to go, feel free to leave. But and there will be just for those who want access to some of the I guess the resources that we're talking about, they will be shared in the closed Facebook group, which you can search on Facebook. There's also, if you did register for this event through Eventbrite, you will receive an email as well. There is a CPD code if you're